Hey Pearl, you were just telling me something about this sermon, Last Chance.
What I was telling you, Bishop Porter, was that when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in,
Uh-huh.
in my left breast, that I had reached out to you as a friend. I had, first of all, I called the church, it was during the roundup, and you were not available. And the person that answered the phone was very responsible and say, we'll pray for it, and that they would give you the message. So at that time, I took it upon myself that I have to have something that the man of God has touched or has ordained. And the most recent sword of the Spirit I had came in October, so that was my most recent contact that I had. And the title of it was that last chances don't always announce themselves. So I took the sword of the Spirit and my Bible and I went to the church. It was during the daytime and I was the only single person that had a key to the church.
Uh-huh.
And as I went in the church and I put my films on the altar and everything, I asked God to give me a miracle because I did not want to have a mastectomy and for them to go into the lymph nodes because it was already determined that that was going to be the result. And as I put the sword of the Spirit along with the films on the altar, I realized it was a portion in there called My Confession of Profession. And I had never heard them before, but I was captured by it after reading it. And each one I wanted to write down because it had the scripture to support it. And the scripture that supported, I made sure that I wrote that with that particular one. And as I read it and written it down, while I was at the church, Bishop Porter had called my home. My mom answered the phone and she said, when I got home, she said, Bishop Porter called and he wants you to return this call. I said, you sure it was Bishop Porter? She said, I'm sure, Pearl. I know his voice, but it was him. So I called back to the sanctuary and it was a Sunday evening and I missed him, but he called me before the Sunday night worship. And he said, Pearl, I'm calling. He said, because you know what? We got to get people healed. And I told him on a little note that I sent him, it was only 2 paragraphs. One was to tell him the nature of the illness, and then my supportive scripture to him was from Mark, the 2nd chapter, beginning at the 1st verse, and it was talking about Jesus having prayer meeting. It was so crowded that it was no entrance into the meeting. But this man that was sick of the palsy, 4 of his friends brought him on a cart, on a bed, and they start tearing off the roof to get him in the presence of Jesus.
Yeah.
So I was so captured. I said, well, that's what I need now. I said, let me call when I write Bishop Porter because I know his time is valuable. I want a friend that is going to tear off the roof and get me in the presence of Jesus. And sure enough, he was my friend. He called, and at the time he had one of the prophet of the church in the room with him. And this particular prophet had started regurgitating and coughing, and he said, may I put you on speakerphone? I said, yes. And the person was unable to come back to talk to me. Mm-hmm. But he said that the person was regurgitating it and that the cancer was gone.
Cancer was gone.
The cancer was gone. The doctor verified it. I had testified last month. And then I realized it was a phase of the testimony I didn't make clear enough. And I was sharing it with Bishop Porter. And I said, I went to the church to write the sword of the Spirit, but I did not tell them which one of the sword of the Spirit. And I said it was imperative that I find the very one, because that's the one that walked me into this healing that I now possess in my body. So when I came this weekend, I had already said, Lord, I want a private moment that I can get to share this with Bishop Porter. I don't know how you're going to arrange it, but it's imperative that he gets this information before I leave town. And so we was at the sanctuary, And I started talking to him about I was thankful for sharing the testimony, thankful for how he led Evelyn to the Lord, thankful that my light did shine, and we were going on our spring break, and she had recently received her salvation. And she said, Pearl, I have to go home with you. I said, no problem. Let me call my parents.
Why did she want to go home with you?
She wanted to go home with me, Bishop Porter, because she had recently accepted the Lord. She said, Pearl, there's no one in my family saved. She said, none of my friends in Atlanta. And she said, I need to be with you during this time. And she said, I hope it's not an imposition. I said, no, Evelyn, it's not an imposition. I said, my dad and no, I said, matter of fact, they're coming in the Cadillac to pick me up. So there's plenty of room for both of you and I. So you don't have to worry about that. And she came, and as we grew in the Lord, as we had prayer, as we studied, and all, upon her graduation and everything, she was able to now go to Atlanta and carry the gospel.
Oh.
But when during her junior year, she had asked Bishop Porter to pray as to whether she was supposed to stay in the state of Florida, take the Florida exam, and stay here, or to go back to Atlanta. And he prayed, and he told her that the Lord is ministering to me for you to go back to Atlanta. As a result, that's how I was able to get to meet Edna Sherrill, Jennifer Pitts, just several of them that came from that, Rosa and all of them that came from that particular area as a result of her going back.
So this particular newsletter that you have, you asked me to find it. Oh, you'll hold that up? So maybe somebody else who sees us today on Facebook, you have your original copy.
Yes.
But this is a copy of it, and it's last chances don't always announce themselves, and you can get a copy of that. People who want to see this, she got healed, and you need to see this also. Last chances don't always announce themselves. Thank you, Pearl, for sharing.
Thank you for